It's episode 8, the halfway point in our Highway 89 road trip, and we're heading to Bryce, my favorite national park. But before we get there, we find a hidden gem, the spectacular Skyline Drive, the highest road in Utah. Then we visit Butch Cassidy's boyhood home, and we learn about the Panguitch Quilt Walk. Come on, it's time to hit the road. This RV road trip series will document our exploration of the entire 1,900-mile route of U.S. Highway 89. This episode, we reach the halfway point of the road trip, Bryce National Park. But along the way, we accidentally discover Skyline Drive, an unforgettable road on top of the Wasatch Plateau. Ride with us on our Highway 89 adventure. Along the way, we'll explain how this highway became to be known as the first good road.
On the roll.
Yeah, you go. That'll give me time to set up here.
Once again, we're reluctant to leave our camp. It seems Highway 89 has done that to us on a regular basis. We've absolutely enjoyed our trip so far. In our opinion, Deer Creek is one of the better state park campgrounds here in Utah. All the sites are paved and with full hookups. Although they're situated on the side of a hill, most sites are flat enough even for a big rig. But Bryce National Park is the next big rock on our radar. We're still a couple days away, but we need to get closer. It's time to go south and head towards Bryce. Our next destination is down a valley we've never driven before. Highway 89 has surprised us with a variety of quality points of interest. We hope interesting places in this new valley, nestled in the Wasatch Mountains, are just as good as we've seen on the first half of our journey. Our route out of the mountains brings us back to the intersection in Ephraim, where we'll rejoin Highway 89. Provo is the last major town we need to navigate through before heading back into the wilderness. But what's this? Road construction detour? We drive around a block-long section of Highway 89 that's barricaded. To our knowledge, this little section of road is the only part of Highway 89 that we didn't drive. All things considered, that isn't too bad. Reattached to our route, we pass Springville, then take a quick detour to Spanish Fork for a visit to Costco for supplies. It'll be our last chance for groceries in a big town until we reach Arizona.
Okay, we got some water, a little bit of shopping done. It's all good. Spanish Fork, Utah. Teenage dog's waiting.
Back on Highway 89, we share the road with Highway 6, a shortcut we use to travel from the Salt Lake area to our barn in Montrose. But we'll diverge off of it with a hard right-hand turn to continue south into the valley of the Wasatch Mountains. We're heading for Palisade State Park Campground in Manatee. This is real close to the halfway point of our road trip in miles driven. What an incredible drive it's been already. So far, we've thoroughly enjoyed it. Ephraim is the largest town in Sanpete County. It was founded by a lone settler, Isaac Beninin, in 1854, but was driven off for a time by Indian trouble. A fort was built and named Fort Ephraim after the tribes of Israel mentioned in the Old Testament. The security of the fort drew a diverse group of settlers to the area: Danes, Swedes, and Norwegians. When the Danes moved in, they called it Little Denmark. But once the word fort was dropped, the name Ephraim stuck. Manti is the oldest town in Sanpete County. It was named by the first settlers in 1849 after a town mentioned in the Book of Mormon. The settlers struggled in the first few years as the winters were harsh, with scant food and clothing and hostile Indians. As spring approached, the ground thawed and the pioneers were faced with hundreds of rattlesnakes. Luckily, no one died from snake bite. Just a few miles further south was our exit for the next couple of nights: Palisade State Park.
Palisade's like 2 miles this way.
Huh?
2 miles up the road.
Say we
Park.
going in the wrong.
It says it's recording, it's just not giving me a script.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, forgot to turn that on.
We pull in just as it gets blustery from a late afternoon thunderstorm.
Watch that tree limb branch that you're talking about.
Yeah, so far you're good.
I don't know why it settled, but redoing the jacks.
After a ruckus evening of thunderstorms, we awoke to a full morning sun and bright, cloudless skies. Perfect weather to explore a new mountaintop road, Skyline Drive.
Before we even get up to Skyline Drive, when we arrive at Skyline Drive, there's going to be a summit overlook. Enjoy the view from the top. So we got a ways to go to get to the top. So it starts with yesterday. We're driving south on 89 because that's what we're doing, south on 89. And we go by this little town called Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant.
And it says Gateway to the Skyline Drive. Wait, Skyline Drive? So we do a little investigation.
Yeah, we got one in North Carolina. No, it's in Virginia, I guess.
Right, there's one in Virginia. There's a couple of them. Never heard of one in Utah. So it's right here. So we just went through the town of Ephraim because we're not going to do the whole Skyline Drive. We did a little research and we're like, you don't have to do the whole thing. We're just going to do a piece.
It's 100 and something miles long.
Yeah. So anyway, we just went through the little town of Ephraim. We are now heading up this canyon because we're going to go investigate because we like going up to the tops of mountains, do we not?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Tops of mountains are us. Looks like it turns to dirt right here.
Oh, I could have dirt. So anyway, we're going to go exploring today because it's right here off of Highway 89.
Right?
Yeah.
Might have a good view up there.
But we're looking for the views on the mountaintops. That's what we do.
Yep, so we're heading up on this road. That's a twisty-turny road.
It says it's going to be another half hour just to get up to the road.
Yeah, it's another half hour to get to Skyline.
Yeah.
And our goal is to head south, maybe 20 miles of Skyline.
Yeah, something
And then
like
there's a road that heads down the hill that goes directly to our campground road. So our kind of our initial goal here is to see what we see and do a little recce, so to speak. and see if there's something interesting to see up here.
Home to the oldest continuing Forest Service research plots in the country.
Skyline Drive is one of the highest roads in Utah. It's an incredibly scenic dirt road traversing the spine of the Wasatch Plateau. It's over 100 miles long and has many options to get to it from the valley below. We entered from the Ephraim junction and will head south about 20 miles before exiting. The southern route is the higher section and turns more primitive the further south you go, before terminating at Interstate 70. The southern route we drove was super flat, with only 1 or 2 sections with a slight grade. We spent the entire day enjoying the spectacular views and super comfortable weather. The road down to our camp was for sure the worst of the route, as it wound down sharp ledges on the edge of a narrow canyon into the valley below. We took it slow and made it back to camp in time to enjoy a satisfying dinner by the lake. After a super quiet night in camp, we departed knowing we were going to Bryce today. We'll remember Skyline Drive for its surprisingly great scenic drive, certainly one of our best ever. But Bryce National Park is absolutely one of my most favorite places on earth. I know I keep saying that, but how can I not? We're eagerly heading south on Highway 89 to see what's next on the route before we get there.
Back on the road, dog. And
89 south.
Smoky this morning. We had a good day yesterday up there without smoke.
Yes.
Yeah, we got lucky.
It was beautiful.
Smoke in the late summer and early fall is a way of life. here. It's got to be there's a bigger lake up there.
South, another reservoir.
Okay, we got to make some miles today, dog. We're going to go.
Yep. Go on.
We hook up with Interstate 70 westbound for a few miles before we exit south once again on Highway 89. Ducking under the interstate, we finally are on a road we've driven before. As with any trip, you should always leave something on the table to visit the next time you swing by. Today is our next time. We'll be exploring a couple places we passed by on our last time through this area. Circleville's history is largely dominated for two historical infamies: the Circleville Massacre of 1866 and its ties to the notorious outlaw Butch Cassidy. Although the little town of Circleville has a checkered past, these days it welcomes everyone as it calls itself the Northern Gateway to the greatest playground in central Utah. Located at the southern end of Paiute County, it has access points to the Paiute ATV Trail and connections with the Fremont and Ponswangant trails. Try saying that 3 times fast. These off-road trails are quite extensive and look like a lot of fun. Once again, we leave something to come back to on a future visit. Just ahead is the first stop of the day, Butch Cassidy's boyhood home. We pull into the virtually empty parking lot at the home of Robert Leroy Parker, better known as the outlaw Butch Cassidy. Parker's life and death have been extensively dramatized in film, television, and literature, and he remains one of the best-known icons of the Wild West. He was born the first of 13 children in Beaver, Utah Territory of English immigrants and grew up here on this ranch. He fled home as a teenager, and historians imagine he was buried around here too. This homestead is near the Old Spanish Trail, a 2,700-mile route that facilitated trade between Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Los Angeles in the early to mid-1800s. After the Mexican-American War ended in 1848, trade opened throughout American territories and the Spanish Trail fell into disuse. A few decades later, Butch Cassidy's family established this home along the historic route. Cassidy used parts of the trail and its rugged terrain to evade law enforcement for years.
This is it. Butch Cassidy's boyhood home.
Life on the farm back in those days was hard. Harsh winters, hot summers, Indians, and more. I can't believe 13 kids lived here in this little house. They were hardy folk back then.
Here's the house. I'm going in. Pretty small for a family of 15. Whew.
We pack up and head south. We have another place we need to stop at that also dramatizes the lifestyle of settlers back in the day. Driving along the old Spanish Trail might be a good time to talk about the first good road. Just a few decades after Butch Cassidy, we enter the Industrial Revolution in the early 1900s. We have a new mode of transportation taken over. No longer will a horse and buggy or the railroad be the only way people can travel about. The automobile was gaining popularity in the East, and the national parks that were being created in the West began to plan for automobile-borne tourists. You can imagine back then that the cars were barely more capable than a good horse and wagon. The rural roads were often no better than rutted wagon paths. To entice the newfangled tourist to travel west, gateway towns to the big national parks began to advertise. Come out west and see the spectacular sights and drive on good roads between them. The roads were improved and maintained by the towns that were located on them. They were marketed as the first good road to the people in the East, and it worked. Tourists flocked to the national parks in droves, and much like today, caused serious overcrowding. The first good road predated the interstate system by a few decades. It also put the nail in the coffin of the railroads. Most went broke and disbanded by the mid-1900s. Obviously, the good road we're currently driving on has been widened and paved a few times since then. This brings us to our second stop of the day, Panguitch and the Quilt Walk. At the junction of US 143 and US 89 is the historic town of Panguitch. Derived from the Native American term meaning big fish, it was settled by pioneers in 1864. The first winter proved to be exceptionally harsh. The bitter cold caused crops to fail, leaving the settlers struggling to survive. It was decided to send 7 men over the mountains to Parowan for much-needed flour. With snowdrifts so deep, they had to abandon their oxen and wagon, and they found it hard to walk as they sunk to their waists in the white powder. Then they ingeniously placed a quilt on the snow, walked to the end, then moved the quilt forward one section at a time to get over the pass and return with their much-needed supplies. This effort became to be known as the Panguitch Quilt Walk, a tradition still celebrated today at the town's annual festival. At the center of town is the Quilt Walk Memorial Park, a lovely little pocket park that has a statue and 7 benches with inscriptions of the life story of each of the 7 brave men. The festival is celebrated on the second week in June, and the quilts are on display on the side of Main Street for a month leading up to the festivity.
Well, there you go.
I love this. There's 7 benches. There were 7 men who went up and over the hill to go find the wheat for the town. So there's 1 bench for each of the 7 men. Each has their name on it.
And a little history.
And a little history. I think, for some reason, I think this is really cool.
Yeah.
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 It's a nice little stopping point to get out and stretch the legs. It's even Kenai approved. We get back on the road as the exit to Bryce is only a few miles away. Bryce National Park is located off Highway 12, one of my most favorite roads ever. If you're ever in the area, you've got to take time to drive Highway 12 from end to end. The clouds grow darker the closer we get to the national park entrance. I sure hope we can park and get settled while it's still relatively dry.
Happy about it.
I know, they're like, where's this? There's no line to get in.
No line.
Oh, I like it. So not level. How do you handle this for one night?
Figure out the best place to park our big rig on the hillside of a camp spot and get the jacks down just in time for a downpour. But afterwards the sun returned, so we ventured out for some epic sunset shots.
Pariah Point.
Look at that little tiny little finger of a
Oh my gosh, yeah,
thing
look at
right
that.
at the top in the sunlight.
Right there in the sun.
Now it's gone
It
away.
was.
And now this is lighting up.
Wow.
Good stuff.
It's only whetting our appetite for what will come tomorrow. Next time we hike into Bryce Canyon, once again, one of my favorite hikes ever. We also rent some e-bikes and crash our new drone into the top of a very tall tree.